It's Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity with your succulent tip of the day and day 2 in Vista. And today, Greg, Terry, and I focused on planting out and irrigating this shady courtyard. And there's some really good tips, I think, for you in here. For one thing, you know, this is a shady spot. So I know that's going to pique your curiosity and you know, you're always asking me what kind of succulents can I grow in the shade. This isn't, from about here back, I don't expect to get much of any sun. Maybe in the summer a little bit as the sun sets, but for the most part it's going to be in shade. Another challenge is this giant wall. So remember yesterday I told you that I was going to bring in some pots and stage them in the landscape so that I could bring the installation up and own some of this wall space. In the future, I'm hoping that the client will commission me to do a rectangular vertical wall in here too. With this being so shady, it would do spectacular. But I digress. Couple things to go over. You'll note that there are a lot of bromeliads in here. Bromeliads are not a succulent, they're more of a closer to an air plant, but they are highly compatible. As long as they get watered in their little cups, they're fine, and they will be spectacular in here. I've got purple Tradescantia. This is a great choice in the shade. This is going to do really, really well as we move into the winter, the cooler months, the winter and the spring. Also Sansevieria. This is another succulent compatible. I have Agave bracteosa. This is one of the only agaves that does really well in the shade. And I wanted to talk about this Euphorbia trigona. You know as well as I do that this plant has the potential to get as big as a house. But I want to ask you a question. Who's the daddy? Are you the daddy, or is the plant the daddy? Well, I'm the daddy. So in 5-6 years, when this thing starts to get too big, guess what Daddy's going to do? Daddy's going to come, dig Junior out of the ground, and move him somewhere else. Now, remember also, if you plant something with the idea of moving it, and I hope you will, you know, succulents aren't like traditional plants. They don't need a lot of roots. They don't need a lot of support. They don't need any kind of real specific soil. So you can get away with this. I distressed the crap out of the roots of this plant before we sunk it in the ground. It had a root ball on it like this. We reduced it to this. So it's going to take a hot minute for this thing to even grow because it's got to reestablish a root system before it takes off. So I'm feeling really confident that we can just let this ride for many years to come. So keep that in mind. If you've got a plant that you really want to put somewhere and you think, oh, well, you know, in 10 years it's going to be too big, so what? In 8, move it. You are the daddy. Okay, how about this little number here? Terry, my design assistant, planted this out. This is Euphorbia Lamby I, and I have no idea if this is going to do well here or not. I haven't used this plant that often, but I just thought this was such a beautiful specimen. I know that it is frost tender. I know that it doesn't like to be cold, and this will be a very kind of isolated, warm spot for it in the wintertime. It'll get radiant heat from the house. It's protected. In the summer, you know, I don't know, but once again, this is November. It's not going to be summer for a hot minute, and if it starts to struggle, what am I going to do? I'm going to dig it out and I'll move it someplace else. Not a problem. We put a Mangave jaguar in here, a couple more bromeliads, another Tradescantia, and Senecio rowleyanus, or string of pearls, for this full shade pot. I think it's going to be spectacular. Also, we aren't going to run irrigation. I don't run irrigation to pots. The client is responsible to hand water as needed, or if I'm here often enough, or my design assistants are here often enough doing maintenance, we can handle that. So I'm thoughtful of that. I think about planting out pots with things that aren't going to require oodles and gobs of water. Greg ran subterranean drip all the way through this installation. We do have a few, you know, sunny things like the Crassula argentea sunset and some little sedums. And if these lose their color at some point, no problem. We'll move them someplace else, pop in fresh color. This is not a problem. This has been Laura Eubanks of Design for Serenity reporting from Vista with day 2 and your succulent tip of the day. Who's your daddy?